Hello everyone, Colin Canet here for WoodWorkWeb. Today we're going to make this great little shop clock. It's just a simple little clock that I needed to replace one that's died in my shop. So why not build one from scratch? And here it is, little spalted alder. So stick around and watch how I make this great little shop clock. Okay, well let's get started on this build. And to get started, let me tell you what all the pieces are that I have. So first of all, I have the quartz mechanism, the clock mechanism. For this one, I purchased some numbers and I ordered Gothic and they sent me Roman numerals, but that's okay. We all know what time is. I've ordered some hands, and in this case, I've got some nice gold hands. I also had to order a second hand, and that was separate, and some parts to go with that. For the backing for the clock, I'm going to be using this. It's actually like a hardboard, but it's pre-painted white, and I use it for patterns, but it's got a beautiful paint job on it, and I really like clocks to have a white face. As you can tell, I find it easier to read that way, so that's what I'm going to use for the backing on this one. For the glass, I get all of my glass from thrift stores and garage sales, old picture frames. It's nice and light and thin. It's perfect for a project like this. And for the carcass, I'm going to be using some of my spalted alder that we got years ago, and I'll put a link to that. We went out and found this out in the forest and cut it up, dried it and everything, so we're going to be using that today. So the first thing we need to do is make the carcass. So I'm going to the table saw and we'll cut some strips and we'll get started on doing that. I'm at the table saw and I've set the tooth height to be just slightly above the material. I've set the distance to the fence to be 3 inches, so let's go. Now I'm over at the sliding miter and I'm going to cut the length of the boards now, and I want the prettiest boards on the outside, so I'm cutting them first and then I'll cut the smaller ones, and I'm gang cutting them to make sure they're exactly the same length. But before I do that, I want to remind you, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I'd like you to do that, and don't forget to click the little gear button beside the subscribe, and that way you'll get notification every time I upload a new video. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do to put this together, I'm going to use dowels, because what I'm going to do then is cut the front of this off so that we make a little bit of a door so that we can change the time when we need to. To help me make sure that I don't lose track of where the face sides are, I like to put just a little bit of blue painter's tape on there. I used to mark them with pens or pencils. I just find this is quicker and easier and a lot more visual. Okay, let's drill the first hole, and that's going to be that one in this side. We'll have to change the doweling jig in a little bit. So we want face side. I always put the face on there, face side to the top. And for this, I'm going to drill one hole here, then I'm going to skip one, then I'm going to drill the other two, and that'll give me more than enough strength for that. Okay, I've drilled all the holes in each of the ends, and you can see those. What I need to do now is to drill some holes in here, and the same jig does that, the doweling jig does that. You just need to take the pieces off and rearrange them a little bit, and now I'm going to be using them like this, and that will give me the same matching holes. Okay, before I glue these up, I always like to do a dry fit, and I used to put dowels in all of them, but they're so hard to get out. Now I only do one in each. And that's why you do a dry fit, because that dowel is still a little bit too long to fit in there, but it matches up nice, and that's what I'm looking for. Now, what I need to do, because the holes are a little bit short, I'm going to take those dowels out. I could, in a case like this, I could re-drill these holes, but I don't like to do that because it makes them sloppy. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm just going to trim all of my dowels down by just a little bit. It'll only take a couple of minutes, and then we can do some assembly. So there's my glue up, and there's the top that I know I'm going to be cutting off, and I'm going to let this sit and dry for an hour or so, because I am going to be cutting the top off. So I want this glue to be pretty firm in there before I cut that off. Well, and now I'm back at the table saw, and I'm going to now cut off what's effectively going to be the door. Now I've changed blades. I've put a 7 1/4 inch circular saw blade in because it's so thin, and it'll make a nice cut on this. So I've set the fence, set the height of the blade, all ready to start cutting. The next thing I need to do is to cut a rabbet out of here, because that's where the glass will fit. So I'm going to hold it tightly in my jig here, and then we'll just cut that out. Now, because the glass is going to be cut square, I'm going to need to square off these pieces. So I'm just going to do that off camera with my chisel. Let's see how it goes. Now, the other thing, this is old glass. So what I like to do is make sure that I line up the etch line with these little finishing nails, and that way hopefully it won't. There we go. Nice clean cut. Well, there we go. After a little bit of fiddling, we did get it working. And now I'm just installing a couple of butt hinges on the side. Okay, we're looking pretty good here. I put a little latch on the side so that we can open and close the door. And you've already seen the clock working. I struggled a little bit to get it working, you can see, but now we'll just put it in there. And I've got a couple boards here, little spacers for the back. It's a pretty tight fit here, but I'm going to glue it in anyway. And I'll just use these in the back here, and I'm just going to glue those in so that it's nice and parallel. There it is. Well, that concludes my little wall clock, complete with the front door, and that's just in case I ever need to readjust the hands. The time on these is always reset in the back, but just a nice little addition to the shop and a great way to read time every day. I'm Colin Cadet for WoodWorkWeb. Thanks for watching.